Hey, it's Jasper, and today we're talking about the best computer speakers for every budget. And as you can see, things got just a little out of hand. We've got big ones, little ones, tall ones, small ones, you name it, we've got them here. And actually, my giant Jenga skills failed me, so I've got some more back here as well that I couldn't fit into the speaker tower. But I've been testing all these speakers with the goal of figuring out which ones make the most sense for different budgets and different use cases. So of course, I'll be talking about sound quality, but I'm also going to touch on build quality, features, connectivity, and just what they're like to live with. Because many of these speakers sound great, but there's definitely some others that have really annoying quirks that make them impossible to use on a daily basis. But before we dive in, a few quick notes. I'll be running regular giveaways every few months, including some of my favorite speakers on this table. And this is actually to celebrate the launch of a new tool that I built for you all to help you get good deals on the products that I talk about in this video. It's nothing sketchy like honey. I sat in this room and coded it myself. So if you want more information on the tool or how you can enter the giveaway absolutely free, the first thing's going to be this Kanto ORA. Be sure to listen on. But next, I want you all to be really clear that this video has no external sponsors. No one's paying me or telling me what to say or what to think. This is just my own testing, my own research, and my own opinion. So if you want to support me, go ahead, use those affiliate links. But if you don't, you get a better deal elsewhere or you find a use set, absolutely no worries. I just want to be transparent how the channel works. And then finally, I have a really big goal for this channel. I want to get to 100,000 subs in the next 12 months. So to earn that, I'm going to make a bunch more content, including on things like microphones, studio monitors, cameras, you name it. It's going to be really fun. So all I ask is first, watch this video. Make sure you think I'm the real deal, that you like my style, you like what I have to say. But if you do, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, and yes, and most importantly, a sub. That really does go a long way. But no more of this begging. Let's get into it and talk more about computer speakers. To kick things off, let's talk about my favorite speakers for under $100. And I have to say, this was a bit of a brutal category to test because so many of the speakers just sounded absolutely terrible. That being said, I did find a few that I like, and the first one I'm going to talk about is, yes, the Creative Pebble. Now, this speaker isn't the best speaker in the world. It's not going to knock your socks off with crazy room-filling sound and soul-thumping bass, but that's not the point of the speaker. The speaker is just a really good value option at like 30 to 40 bucks, and it just gets the job done really well. I compared it against this Red Dragon soundbar and this Nyla V, however you say that soundbar, and a few other options, and I think it's by far the best sounding option for its price. I recommend the V3. That one has Bluetooth as well as a slightly larger driver, as well as it gets the audio and power all through the single USB cable. So that's a nice touch. Now, if you're like, Jasper, I really need something even cheaper than that, then fine. I guess you could go with something like this. This is a cheapo depot, no branded option. It costs like $15 and it uses the USB cable again to do audio and power. So there you go. I got you on the really, really cheap option as well. Now, if you want something that definitely sounds quite a bit better, but might be a bit more risky, then I'll say we should talk about these speakers. So this is the Ortizan C7 and this is the OHAYO C6. And I say risky because both of these are made by the same company, but they really don't have much of a track record, and I do not know how long they're going to last. But from a specs and just sound quality perspective, I'm overall pretty impressed. So the C7 has a USB-C input, Bluetooth, TRS, balanced input, RCA, and a 3.5 millimeter input. Plus, it has a port on the front as well as a headphone out jack. And it overall sounds pretty good, especially considering it costs around $80. Its little brother, the OHAYO C6, is very similar. It's just a smaller package and it has a little bit of connectivity removed. So no TRS, no 3.5 millimeter. But again, it sounds better than the Creative Pebble. And for around 60 bucks or 70 bucks, it's a nice little speaker. I just don't know how long it's going to last. And they do have a really annoying quirk, which is when you change the input, they yell at you like this.
Bluetooth.
And sadly, you just can't turn that down. So if you're going to be changing inputs a lot or connecting a bunch of different Bluetooth devices, maybe give them a pass. But for most people, I think you can probably look past that and just leave it on one input and use them and be happy. Now, if you don't want to gamble with a bit of an unknown brand, which by the way, that's totally reasonable, but you also have a bit more room on your desk, then you might want to consider some options from Edifier. So this is the R1280T. This is out of this price bracket. However, they do make a stripped down cheaper version, which is the R980T. That has all the Bluetooth removed, a little bit less amplification, but it leaves you with a very bare bones but highly functional speaker that is basically perfect for a computer setup. It has a nice 4-inch driver. A lot of people love the speaker. It sounds really good. So definitely consider that if you want to go with a more reputable brand and you have more space on your desk for it. Now let's talk about a few of these other speakers before we wrap this up. This weirdo, this is a Dell soundbar that's made specifically for video conferencing. So if you do a lot of Zoom calls or whatnot, this has a microphone array that's actually surprisingly good at noise canceling and cutting out background noise. I tested it. I was actually surprised how well it works. However, I wouldn't want to listen to music on it all the time, but if you do a lot of video calling, this might be exactly what you wanted. So those are ultimately the speakers that I think make sense. Unfortunately, the rest of them, I just don't really believe in or can't get behind anymore. Like the Creative T40s, I still love these speakers. However, the price has gone up to now around $150. And at that price, it just doesn't make sense. And the Drop BMR1V2, which is what this is, I do like. It's got a pretty unique form factor. You can see it has a removable grill. And also, actually, if you want to, you can mount it sideways like this, and now this can fit under a monitor. So some people this makes sense to. For me, I just think the sound quality versus the price just isn't there, but it might make sense for other people. And then what else we have? Oh yeah, we have the Logitech Z207. A lot of people buy these, and honestly, I'm not really sure why. They're bigger and they do have kind of an elegant design and they're a little bit smaller form factor. But honestly, I think the Creative Pebbles are the better buy and they're like 20, 30 bucks cheaper than these bad boys. And then we have the Sanyon. I'm just not that big of the Sanyon. It sounds a little bit tinny and hollow to me. Honestly, I think there's some better buys out there. But enough of all these cheaper ones. Now let's talk about some more premium options. Of all the price points in this video, I think this $100 to $200 range is probably my favorite right now, just because there's so much good value to have here. And there's a bunch of new entrants that I'm pretty excited about. So the first one I want to talk about is the Edifier MR3. This is $150, give or take, and it is the latest update to the MR4. And now the MR4 was widely loved, and I think they built upon a really solid foundation with this MR3. And overall, I think the MR3 is probably the better buy for most people. And the main reason is they added Bluetooth, which I know that's a nice touch. And yes, this is multi-point capable, but usually that's not enough to like dictate buying a speaker or not. But the reason why I like this is because now it gives you access to the Edifier Connects app. And that has a 6-band EQ and allows you to toggle on a high pass filter. So the 6-band EQ is important for the speaker because technically out of the box, this is a studio monitor. And what that means is the highs, the mids, the lows, they're all basically the same volume relative to each other, and it has a nice neutral sound response. So if you're editing sound, editing music, this is a nice little entry-level speaker for that. But if you want to listen to some more lively music and have a speaker that's maybe a little bit more zesty, then you can go into that EQ, pump up the bass a bit, maybe add a little bit more on the treble side of things, and now you have a brighter, more lively speaker. Yes, EQing a speaker is nothing new, but the nice thing about this is the EQ is saved on the speaker itself. So if you change your input source, you still have that custom tuning tailored to your listening preference. That's definitely a nice touch, and I'm a big fan of seeing that on the speaker. The other thing that I like that they've done is they've added this high pass filter setting. So if you want to add a sub later, then you can easily go add one, toggle that on, and now this speaker is no longer gonna try to reproduce those lower notes, and it's gonna delegate that to the sub. I do wish that they had a dedicated sub out port on the back that would automatically trigger that high pass filter. It would just make it a little bit easier to add a sub to your system. But you know what? It's a great little speaker at its price, so I can forgive it for not having that. The other thing that I wish they added is a USB-C input. Sadly, there's no digital wired input here. You do get Bluetooth, you get RCA, you get TRS, and you have that 3.5mm input port on the front, but it would have been nice to see USB-C as well. From a sound perspective, I think this sounds better than the MR4. It does have a little bit less bass, but I think it's a little bit tighter and more precise. And overall, the MR3 I think is very balanced, very precise. And from a spatial imaging perspective, you can like listen to it in my near field setup, and I can just like hear all the different instruments in 3 dimensions. It does a great job at that. And overall, I'm a really big fan of this speaker. However, if you want a speaker that can do double duty, where it can be used on your desk, but also be used to fill a whole room, then you might want to consider the OS-10s. So OS actually stands for Overnight Sensations, and that's a do-it-yourself speaker kit that is widely loved in the audiophile community. So this is the mass-produced version of that with a little amplifier built in. And again, this is widely loved because it is just such good value. It retails for about $170, and for that you get Bluetooth, optical, coax, RCA. There's no special app, no fancy things like that, but it is just a really good sounding speaker that can be used for near field applications or for filling like a medium sized room. It's got a nice full balanced sound and it's tuned not to be a studio monitor, but more for listening to music. Ultimately, I'm a really big fan of the speaker. But if you have less space and you still want a really big sound, then the next speaker I want to talk about is the Edifier M60. I am a massive fan of this speaker, and I know there's going to be people out there saying, Jasper, you're getting paid by Edifier, you're an Edifier shill. That's not true. I'm just a fan of their new products, and I have to say the M60 is really, really impressive. It just sounds way bigger than it actually is. So for reference, this is the M60. This is actually the speaker that I use on my day-to-day basis on my desk. You can see actually behind me, I've got the white version of it there. So here we go. This is the Kanto ORA right here, and this is the M60. They are very similar in size, and I love the ORAs. I'll talk about them more, but these cost 350 bucks, and this is around $200. And for that, you get Bluetooth, you get USB-C, and you have a 3.5 millimeter input. But with that Bluetooth connection, you get the same Edifier Connects app that allows you to tune it with that 6-band EQ. You don't get the high pass filter, which is a bit of a bummer. I really do wish that they did have that option so you could add a sub if you wanted to. So that's probably the biggest detriment to these speakers. But from a sound perspective, they sound really, really good, especially considering how small they are. They're full, they're balanced, they're precise. I'm genuinely impressed by these speakers, and I think they make a lot of sense for people with having kind of more full or compact desks. They would fit well there. And the other thing I'll compare them to is the Audio Engine A2 Plus. Here you go. This is the Edifier. They are very similar in size, and the Edifier just sounds way better than the Audio Engine. And honestly, I think Edifier is kind of changing the game with this $200 price point. A few final notes on the M60 before we move on. First, I forgot to mention they do include this little metal speaker stand, which I have to give them props for. Kanto charges something like $20 or $30 for that. So way to go, Edifier. Now, I will say the other thing is just more of a me thing, but I can't handle that gold leaf Edifier thing on the front. It's fine. It's not too, loud, but for me, it just kind of haunts me and I wanted it gone. So I did do a little bit of a science experiment where I got some acetone or nail polish remover and I rubbed it on the front and I was successful. I did remove the logo. Unfortunately, I was a bit too successful and I removed some of the plastic underneath as well. So the surface finish is a little off there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to live with this, but figured I would share my learnings and maybe someone else will be able to do it better. So there we go. But let's talk about the rest of the speakers on this table. So first we have the JBL 104. This is a nice little studio monitor. It has the tweeter embedded in the driver. It's very kef of them. But honestly, I think I prefer the MR3 over the 104. I think it just sounds better and it's more fully featured with that Edifier Connects app. Now, next up, we have the Edifier G2000. This is a very small little computer speaker, and it's fine. However, they've been raising the price on it. So I think now it retails for around $120, $130. And at that price, I can't endorse it. And it has RGB if you're into that. But for me, its sound quality just isn't good enough to warrant that price tag. If you can get it on sale, maybe it makes sense. But if you want a really small, nice sounding speaker, the M60 is definitely your best bet. Now, the Edifier R1280T, this is a great little speaker. I really like it. I have to say, I just prefer the OS-10 more. You can't really go wrong with either, but figured I would just let you all know the Jasper take is the OS-10 is better than this Edifier. And then finally, we have the PreSonus Iris 3.5. It's another little studio monitor. It's very popular. I like it. However, I like the MR3 more. Again, I think it sounds better and I think it has more features, more connectivity, and it's just a better all-around package. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on these speakers. Now let's move on to some more premium options. Let's talk about speakers in the $200 to $400 price range. And I know that's a big range. I'll talk more about why in just a second. But first, let's talk about these 6 speakers over here. So we have the Kanto U2, the Audio Engine A2 Plus, and this is the new one with the USB-C port in the back, the Kanto ORA, and the ORA4 underneath that, and then the OHAYO GX10DB and the GX30 ARC. And of these 6 speakers, the 2 that I like the most are the Kanto ORA and the Kanto ORA4. I think from a sound perspective, these just have the best sound. They sound like the biggest, most full and rich speakers. They also have a really nice flat frequency response. They do carve off the treble just a little bit. That does help with listening fatigue, and I like that a lot. And relative to the U2 and the A2 Plus, those are just really nice little speakers, but they sound like just that, like little speakers. The Aura and Aura 4 just have much fuller and rich sound. I'll say the Aura is great for just near field listening on your computers. If you want to have room filling sound or maybe more prominent bass, then I'd go for the Aura 4. I choose to use the Auras. I don't need that really prominent bass. I live in an apartment and don't want to harass my neighbors. Also, if you want to though, you can add a sub. These both have a nice little sub out that automatically applies a high pass filter. But if you're going to add a sub, I would just skip the 4s and go straight for the originals. You can save a bit of money. There's no need to get the 4s then. And then let's talk about these OHAYOs really quick. I'll say I really like this brand. I've had their gear in the past and I deeply respect them, but here, unfortunately, I think these are a bit of a miss. The build quality isn't great. There's these visible seams on the front. The sound quality's fine, but I definitely prefer the Auras to them. I do like that they have a phono preamp, so you can easily attach a turntable to them. And then the GX30 ARC also has an HDMI port on the back to connect to a TV, so that's a nice touch. But for just normal computer usage, I think again the Auras win out. As far as pricing, the top one here goes for 250. The bottom one retails for about 350. The Aura is around 350. The Aura 4 is about 400. And then the U2 and the U2 or the U2 and the A2 Plus retail for about 250, give or take. But I will say the prices on these speakers do change a lot. I've definitely seen the Auras go on pretty steep sales in the past. And that actually brings me to the sponsor of today's video. And I know I said there was going to be no sponsors on this video, so let me explain. Dip is actually a tool that I coded and built myself, all for you, my beloved YouTube audience, to help you get good deals on the products that I mentioned. And the way it works is really quite simple. So we were talking about how the prices on these speakers sometimes change, and yes, the prices sometimes dip. Hence the name. I know, I'm so clever. So if you go to the link in the description, you'll see all the products that I mentioned in this video. And if there's one there you want to buy, but maybe not at the current price, you can sign up for a dip alert. Yes, a price dip alert. And that lets me know you're interested in that product. So then if I ever find a really good deal on it, I can send you a message and let you know. I curate all the deals myself. I'm not going to spam you or do anything sketchy. It's literally just a way to help me get my audience good deals on these products. And yes, I'm going to do some other fun things on that page as well. So I'm going to be running giveaways. So this very set of Kanto Auras could be yours for free. Go ahead and enter if you want. And I'm going to be doing more giveaways in the future as well. There's also polls on that page. So if you want to vote on which speakers you like in different categories, you can see how everyone else voted as well. And then finally, I'm going to be reading the comment section to see if there's any speakers that I may have missed. And I'll be curating those in the community pick section at the bottom of the dip page. So hopefully you all like it. And if you find any bugs or anything like that, drop a comment, let me know. But let's get back to the video. Before we move on from the Aura, I really quickly want to touch on the question that I'm sure is on a lot of your minds, which is Kanto Aura versus Edifier M60. And this is a tough call for me because I really do like the Auras. I've used them now for over a year. I love the way they look. I love the volume/input knob and the pinprick LED. I like the waveguide and it allows you to mount them horizontally, as you can see like I do behind me. There's a really solid little package. That being said, the new kid on the block is also really, really impressive. The M60, it actually gets louder than the Auras. It's a more powerful speaker. It has that built-in Edifier Connects app to allow you to have the EQ. It is just a really nice little package. It doesn't have the sub out port, so if you do want to add a sub to this, it's going to be a lot harder, where the Aura has a sub out port with the automatic high pass filter. Kanto makes really nice subwoofers as well. But this costs around $200 and that retails for around $350. So I have to say, I think that for most budget conscious shoppers, the Edifier is probably the better buy. And again, I'm sure people are like, Jasper, what the heck is Edifier paying you? I swear they're not. I'm just really impressed by the value for money of their more recent speakers, including this one. That being said, if you have a bit more money to spend, or you are more design conscious and you like the Kantos, or you want that extra sub out, or you like the colors that they make this in, it makes perfect sense, especially if you can get it on sale. So they're honestly two really solid options and you can't go wrong with either one. Now let's talk about some studio monitors that make sense for like a small desktop setup. So we have the Yamaha HS3, the Atom Audio D3V, the Vanatoo Transparent Zero, and the iLoud Micro Monitor. So first, the Yamaha. I'll just say, I think it's fine, and I do like its aesthetic. It's a pretty like handsome little speaker with some cool design, but I just think from a value for money perspective, you can do better. It retails for around $230, and at that price point, I think honestly, I would just go with the MR3. It's roughly the same size, and I think the MR3 is just a better sounding, more fully featured speaker. So there you go. I swear I'm not an Edifier shill. I just like the MR3 more. But now let's focus on these legitimately little tiny studio monitors. And the first one we're going to talk about is the iLoud micro monitor. This came out back in 2016 and it's been around ever since. So the fact that it has some staying power tells you everything you need to know. It is a really good speaker. So the main thing is it's super portable and it's super tiny and it's really durable as well. So you can easily throw it in a bag. It's got this non-removable grill and it sounds really impressive, like a much bigger speaker than what you get here. It can produce some very deep bass notes. It's quite precise and accurate up top as well. And it is just overall an excellent little speaker, especially if you're traveling. So that's my recommendation for that use case. It retails for about $350 and then it sometimes does go on sale. Next up, we have the Vanatoo Transparent Zero. This speaker is the darling of the audiophile world. If you do any reading, so many people absolutely love the speaker. I will say it retails for about $500. It does go on sale, which is why I'm including it in this price bracket. And it is just an excellent little studio monitor. It's adjustable, it has all the connectivity you could ever want, and it's also made by like an artisan team of audio engineers. I really do like it. It is just a bit steep on price. And then finally, you have the Atom Audio D3V, and it is excellent as well. When it launched, there was a few quirks with like the standby mode and the low volume listening, but they fixed that with a firmware update. And now it is just a really good speaker for like legitimate precision audio mixing, audio production, editing, etc. It is a really solid option if you don't have a lot of space. It has that dart tweeter, it's like ribbon style tweeter that allows it to have really precise high notes. And overall, it's a really nice package. There's no Bluetooth or anything like that here. You have USB as well as TRS. But honestly, for audio production, that's probably all you're going to want to use anyway. So these are the small little guys. Now let's talk about some bigger options. So first, let's talk about the Kali Audio LP-UNF. This is a really nice little all-around studio monitor. You can see it's quite compact relative to these other options. And the other thing I really like about it is it has a port on the front, which means it's a lot less sensitive to the placement. You're not going to have it against a wall and cause that kind of over bass situation. It also has a USB-C port on the back, which allows you to have that digital input and not have to worry about any sort of signal interference on analog cables. So that's a really highly regarded studio monitor. A lot of people absolutely love it. The other option that I think is in a similar price bracket, this costs around $350, and then the Atom Audio for the pair. The Atom Audio T5V is around $400 or so for the pair, and it is just much larger. As you can see, one, I need to use the gym, and two, it is a much, much deeper cabinet. But the thing that's special on this one is the tweeter. So if you see here on the front, this is a ribbon style tweeter, a diaphragm tweeter that moves a lot more air, and it's also a lot lighter than the dome that's used on basically all these other speakers here. So that means that it can stop vibrating really quickly and you get that really precise and crisp high notes being produced by this. So if you're really passionate about that, the T5V is also a really solid option. These two are just widely loved and they're great, great studio monitors. Now, the one beneath the Kali Audio is the Edifier MR5. This is a very new entrant. It's an interesting speaker because it's tri-amped. That means there's an amp for the tweeter, there's also an amp for the main woofer, and there's also a 5-inch subwoofer in the bottom of the speaker. And that means that it has a pretty strong bass response relative to some of these other speakers that don't have a dedicated subwoofer. That being said, if I'm looking for a good quality studio monitor, I'm 100% going to go for the Kali Audio or the Atom Audio. Now, if I'm looking for something that's a bit of an all-rounder that can do double duty, then the MR5 starts to make more sense. Like I said, you have the Connects app, you can EQ it. You also, unfortunately, you don't get the high pass filter on the speaker because it has the built-in subwoofer. So if you ever want to add to your speakers and have that like extra subwoofer, definitely don't get the Edifier MR5 because it's just not really built to support that. Now, there are a few other options I want to talk about. So if you're looking for a real studio monitor, but you're on a budget, this JBL 305P Mark II is probably your best bet. This retails for about $230 or so, and it is just really good value for money. Again, it's quite large. Its cabinet isn't quite as deep as the Atom Audio, but it's still pretty big. But at that price point, it's pretty hard to beat. The only kind of downside that I can say about this is it does have a little bit of tweeter hiss, especially in a really quiet room when you can hear it. For me, it doesn't bother me, but figured I would raise that. And then finally, we talked about the Edifier MR5 for just listening to music. If you want a really handsome speaker, well, here you go. This is the Klipsch R40PM. I love the way this speaker looks. I also like the way it sounds, but it's definitely tuned not to be a studio monitor. It's more for just music listening with that more V sound signature of slightly more pronounced bass and slightly more pronounced treble as well. It is a great little speaker. It has a phono preamp, so you can connect it to a turntable, and it has a sub out. So if you want to add a subwoofer later, it can totally support that very easily. So anyway, there we go. These are all the larger options, but now let's go talk about some even more fancy and premium speakers. We are now on the final frontier, and honestly, I'm feeling a little naked without all these other speakers up here. Well, there's a few that I'm very excited about. These are all well over 400, and there's one more that I'll also talk about. But first, let's talk about this fella. This is the iLoud Micro Monitor Pro. And if you think it looks familiar, that's because it is the bigger, slightly chunkier sibling to the original Micro Monitor. And what makes it Pro? Well, yes, the price tag. So now it's gone up to $600 for a pair. But the main claim to fame of the speaker is that it has this thing called ARC, A-R-C, Acoustic Room Correction. And it is a very cool piece of technology. Basically, what you do is when you're setting it up, you put the speakers where you want them, and then you temporarily get the microphone and you put it by your ears and where you're going to be listening to it. And then the speaker will listen to itself. And the main reason for this is basically every room is going to cause the sound to be slightly adjusted to have some anomalies in it. So you could have the most neutral speaker in the world, but playing it in anything other than an anechoic chamber, you're going to get weird reflections, resonances, etc. And it's not going to be neutral when the sound reaches your ears. So this allows the speaker to understand that and compensate for the specific quirks that your room introduces. It's very cool, and it's also very effective. So number one thing, get our acoustic treatment if you can. Most people really can't or can't do it all the way. So the next best thing you can do is something like this. And this technology is usually reserved for much more expensive setups. So props to iLoud for this. It's very cool to see it come in a $600 package. This is really a great speaker, but obviously you only are going to want something like this if you're in the audio production side of things. Otherwise, it's probably a bit of overkill. I will say, if you like the sound of that technology, but you maybe don't want to use it on the speaker, iLoud also sells this guy, which is called the Arc Studio. And again, it comes with the microphone, and then it has XLR in and XLR out, and it sits in between the audio source and the speaker and allows you to do exactly the same thing. You can take the measurements of your room, it will create a compensation profile, and then adjust all of the sound that's coming out of the speaker so it's much more neutral when it reaches your ears. It's a very cool piece of kit, and overall, I'm a big fan of what iLoud's done here. There are two final speakers I want to talk about. The first one, sadly, isn't here, but it is for the gamers, and it is the SteelSeries Arena 9. This is a 5.1 channel, $600 system that is designed specifically to give you a super, super immersive experience while you're gaming. It has RGB, it has that dedicated sub, and it's a really impressive experience. My friend has one. I've tried it out. I'm super into it for gaming. It's not really the best for music, but that doesn't surprise me. I'll also say having a 5.1 channel system means you have a lot of wires, so be prepared for that. But if you're a diehard gamer, definitely check it out. And then the last option, I personally use this in my living room, but you can use it on your desk setup as well if you have space. And it is this guy. This is the KEF LSX2. I've had this for like the last year or so. I've listened to it for hundreds of hours, and I absolutely love it. It is really an awesome speaker. Unfortunately, it now also has an awesome price tag, and I think they've raised it now, so it's around $1,500. They also do make a slightly cheaper version of it, so the KEF LSX2 LT. It's very, very similar. Sonically, it's exactly the same, but they've taken away a few flourishes. So one is now wrapped in plastic as opposed to the fabric like this one. Two, they've removed the 3.5 millimeter input. And then three, they've made it so that the speakers have to be connected via a USB-C cable, where with these, they don't have to be connected at all, and they just both need mains power. So honestly, if it were me, again, and I wanted to save 500 bucks, I would just go for the LT version. This is a nice one to have, but I don't think the flourishes are worth the $500. I'll say from a sound perspective, this is a really amazing speaker. I absolutely love it. KEF is famous for producing really high-end audio equipment. This is actually the cheapest speaker they make, believe it or not. So check it out if you're looking for something really high-end. And with that, that's it. We are now done. I have no more speakers to show you or to talk about. Hopefully you found this helpful. I know this video had an insane breadth to it and maybe not in that much depth. I'll say I was just trying to give you guys a good curation of some of the best options. And if I tried to go deeper on all of them, this video would be like 4 hours long. Also, there was no sound test in this video, which I know some people are going to be upset about. My personal philosophy is once you played a speaker in a room and had all the reflections and then picked it up with a microphone and then had that uploaded to your computer and compressed by YouTube and then listened back to over a pair of headphones or speakers, it's just going to be really hard to get a good understanding of how the speakers differ. I will say if you guys want it enough, I could consider doing something for you. So drop a comment if you want a sound test, and maybe I'll do something there. And that's it. Oh yeah, last few things. Be sure to enter the giveaway. Go to Dip, let me know what you think, and sign up for price alerts if you think that's helpful. Give me any feedback. And also, please subscribe if you found this video helpful. Again, I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and I'd really appreciate your support. Okay, enough of that. See you on the next one.